you look around the league, there's a lot of teams, in the hunt. We're in the hunt. You sit here and you say, hey, Thanksgiving and close to the end of November, and we're in the hunt. When you sit around that table tomorrow, you're saying we're in the hunt. And there's a lot of teams that wish they were in the hunt. But we're in the hunt.
It is the In the Hunt draft special. We have Joe Buscaglia on, of course. Joe, all of the draft experts are talking about how this is a really, really difficult year to mock. Are you also going to be a whiny little bitch, or are you going to do your job?
I will, in fact, be doing my job this year. Out of the blue, I know that's not really normal for me. Usually I'll be of the whiny variety. You know me, Greg. No, I'm doing it.
You're perfect. I do think that's funny. And that is probably true. Like, it is a hard year to mock. Am I wrong about that?
No, it's because of the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks are throwing everything in just complete disarray. Like the only year that I can liken this year to is the year that the Bills took EJ Manuel in 2013, because the quarterbacks were just a complete mess that year. And this year you've got Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral. Like, who knows where any of these guys are going to go? What's funny, the parallel between the 2013 draft is Carolina, who doesn't have a second or third round pick. There are so many parallels between the Panthers this year and the Bills back in 2013, because the Bills, everyone knew they were hell-bent on taking a quarterback in the first round, and the Panthers kind of feel that way too. So there's talk of the Panthers moving down from 6 and picking their quarterback, which is usually a strong indicator that they love the guy. Like, hey, we feel so strongly about this quarterback that we're going to move down because we don't think the value's right to take him. Like, that's the whole thing about EJ Manuel that always blew my mind. Like, okay, yeah, they think he could be a stud, but they're not going to take him at 8. They want that extra second round pick.
I think someone should give EJ a chance again. Maybe someone will draft him this week.
They might. They might. Redraft Matt Barkley.
Did he go anywhere after Buffalo, EJ Manuel, or was that he didn't go anywhere else?
No, he played somewhere. Yeah, he played for the Raiders, because I remember. Yeah, he was definitely in Oakland for a bit.
Boy, all the Bills quarterbacks go to Oakland to die.
Peterman went there. Mm-hmm.
So I know Kyle's super excited. He's got a list of questions. He told us we weren't allowed to ask them.
You talk to me like you're holding my hand in line to sit on like Santa's lap. I'm a kid at the mall. You're excited, but you don't scream at his face and don't throw up while you're up there. Okay,
I mean, if it makes you feel better, I do feel like I'm being held hostage right now.
You are.
All right, well, we'll jump into it. There's a lot of draft questions, and we all have them that we want to ask. So yeah, I want to first ask.
Yeah, it's mostly Kyle. My questions are mostly about who's hot this year.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about your mock draft first, because 95% of mock drafts out there have the Bills taking a wide receiver or a cornerback. There are some where a defensive lineman falls to them that they take. And out of nowhere, here comes Joe B, left field, said, screw all that. They're taking a running back, not moving down. They're taking a running back. Mm-hmm. So my questions are, now that mock draft was about a month ago, you wrote that.
Yep.
Do you still feel that way? And how have you protected yourself from the running backs don't matter crew?
By not looking at Twitter. No, I that was a month ago. And I still feel like it's a distinct possibility right now, even this close to the draft. I don't know exactly where my final mock is going to take me, because I'm posting that on the day of the draft. But Breece Hall is definitely in the running for me. And there's a lot of reasons to it that I think make more sense when you get past just the stigma about running backs, like that the position is devalued and you're just not successful when you take a first round running back. And, there's some valor to that. But I think from where the Bills are and what they value and how open they are to it, you would be lying to yourself if you think that this isn't a distinct possibility. Like, Brandon Beane comes from the Carolina Panthers, where they took not one, not two, but 3 first-round running backs in the span of like 10 years with Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams, and Christian McCaffrey. One of those was like top 10. I can't remember where McCaffrey, I think he was a top 10 pick, if I'm not mistaken. If not that, just right outside of it. But Williams and Stewart, those are like mid to late round first guys. So there's a history there.
Good too. All three of them
Right.
are like,
And,
I would
and
say
we all remember
on them.
the Carolina Panthers dynasty of the 2010s.
Oh yes. But he's open to it. And even yesterday when he talked with reporters, he was just like, we have had running backs since I've been here that had a first round grade. And, I wrote that quote in my most recent article over at The Athletic. And the first comment was like, okay, so he had Saquon Barkley as a first round grade. And I'm like, well, he used plural here. And I'm pretty sure they were in on Travis Etienne last year, as much as I didn't want to admit it back then. I think they would have been in on Najee Harris last year, but neither of those guys got to them because the Giants took Kadarius Toney and Urban Meyer instead took Travis Etienne. But it also bleeds to a kind of a bigger point about what they want their offense to be this year. Running back to me is kind of a missing piece for them. Singletary was good last year, don't get me wrong, but he's not like that dynamic over the top aspect to their offense that they're looking for. It doesn't really have that home run element. A guy like Breece Hall has that. The pass catching abilities are really stinking good. Maybe not as great as someone like Travis Etienne a year ago, but it's there. I would argue that Breece Hall is a better pure runner than Travis Etienne was. Hall is compelling to me as a prospect because I think the Bills want to they have gotten more athletic with their offensive line, and I think they want to implement more zone principles into their running scheme. And the underlying factor here is, I think that they want to take more off of Josh Allen's rushing plate while still maintaining the threat to run. They depended on that guy so much with his legs over the last 4 years. And I don't know that they want to subject him to as many hits moving forward because they're looking at this as the long term. So are all of those reasons going to be great ones to take a running back in the first round? It could compel a team like the Bills. And there's also this piece to it too. When they were at their best last year, they were running offenses that were having 2 tight ends. They went out and signed OJ Howard. It was because they authored this threat to run and they were more versatile to where teams like the crappy Jaguars couldn't sit in too high all game and take away your downfield throwing threat. So now they had to account for the run. It opened things up down the field. Like Gabriel Davis had a humongous game multiple humongous games down the stretch because like these things are opening up because they have more of a threat to run. So all of that plays into it. And then the topper, Devin Singletary is a free agent at the end of the year. There's value in having Breece Hall in place for 5 years. And past Singletary, are you really trusting anyone in that backfield to give you a carry when you need it between Zach Moss, Duke Johnson, and whoever the hell else is there right now? I'm probably not. So that's my, not an elevator pitch, because if we were on an elevator for this long, then you guys would probably kill me. But that's my pitch for why a running back makes sense to them.
I was very anti-running back, and through that chunk right now and your articles in The Athletic, you have convinced me that. And also, most importantly, Breece Hall, hot mock, he's up there. He's a good looking,
attractive.
Yeah.
I don't even know what he looks like, but I know we don't like the same looks, Sean. So I'm a little nervous, but maybe I'm more of a Kenneth Walker guy. I don't know.
I love that to me, I don't care. And I mean that in that, like, they need a cornerback. And other than that, I don't, like, whatever, like, roll it out. Like OJ Howard, that's great, add him. I don't think that they're really in need of anything and they can really use this draft to just add.
Yeah.
And someone, I was listening to the radio today, and used to live in Buffalo, now works in Baltimore. Help me out with the name of the TV reporter.
Sean Stepner. He used to work with him.
Stepner was talking
Great
about
guy.
Baltimore today. So at the time you're listening to this, it will have been 3 days, but he was talking about the Ravens draft, and this isn't a mock. on Sean. It's a mock on the Ravens needs. He was like, well, they need an interior lineman and they need a linebacker and they can really use safety or cornerback. I was like, oh my God, like, you're not going to get that with 7 rookies. And for the Bills, it's nice. It's like, they need a starting cornerback. There's still options for that in free agency. They can use this draft to kind of play around a little bit.
I don't know that there's anything they could do that would annoy me, because even if they do a running back first round, who cares? That's fun.
What if they take EJ Manuel in the first?
I was going to say they could draft EJ Manuel.
He deserves a second shot.
With better coaching, you never know. He can air it out. He said it 1,000 times.
But I was going to say, to Greg's point, for the Bills in general, they normally do not like to play their rookies a bunch. Like they like them to be rotational players, even the early round guys. There's only been 3 examples of players that have been coast to coast near 100% snap guys. And that's been Tre'Davious White, Tremaine Edmonds, and Zay Jones. And they did all 3 of those early on in their regime before they were able to build anything up. And because everything else besides those guys was complete crap on the roster, they had no other choice. Everybody else, you go right down the list of their top 3 round picks, like they started the year either on the bench or in a really strong rotational role to where it's like near 50%. Josh Allen didn't start his rookie year. They made Nathan Peterman go out there and have a 5 for 18 for 24-yard performance in the pouring rain in Baltimore before they said, Josh Allen, okay, here's the team. Who else am I thinking? Dawson Knox, Devin Singletary, Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau was only a 49% snap guy last year, even though he started every game. Like it's McDermott's belief, because he will reference this a lot during the season, that he believes the rookie wall is real, and they take steps throughout the season to try and keep that wall from becoming such a debilitating factor to the player's season near the end, to where they're reducing snaps throughout the year. So that's why I think, like, okay, even if they draft a corner, is that guy going to play every single snap? He could, certainly. But what they've usually done at cornerback since Bean and McDermott have been there is they've just gotten a veteran guy to play opposite Tre'Davious White and to compete with Levi Wallace. And the new Levi Wallace is Dane Jackson. So who's to say they just don't do that again? Sign a guy like Joe Hayden, Kyle Fuller, Jack Rabbit, Jenkins. Like one of those 3 guys would be fine. And then you add a round 2, 3, or 4 boundary cornerback. You got a great cornerback depth chart at that point.
I thought the rookie wall was a glory hole for virgins.
I knew you were going to get stuck on the rookie wall. I knew I was going to get a rookie wall comment from Greg. I wrote it down in my brain.
All right, Kyle.
I wanted to, now we talk about the wide receivers. Like I said before, all the mock drafts, the Bills are taking a wide receiver either first or second round. You have the Bills taking Calvin Austin. Yeah. And that fits in line with, I think, what most Bills fans want is kind of like a shifty slot wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Diggs is number 1, Davis is number 2. They want that shifty slot guy. So in this draft, I know Calvin Austin won. Who are like the shiftiest, slottiest wide receivers that the Bills could be looking for, either early or late? Slottiest is the best thing that's ever come to my mind. I kind of want to log off. That's the best.
I'm not even going to answer it. I'm just going to
slottiest. I hope
love it. I actually love
wide receiver during the introductions, you get to ask questions. You go, now, would you consider yourself slotty?
Are you the slottiest receiver in this draft? Would you say? I think it's in play. I think it's a great term. I'm going to use it.
Yeah. To your question, I think there are a good few guys that fit those requirements. Like Calvin Austin obviously is one of them. Sky Moore from Western Michigan, I think is going to be a really nice player and in the NFL, although I'm not convinced he gets down to 57. Jahan Dotson from Penn State is probably like an early second round, late first round guy. I think he might even be more of an outside guy. But good route runner, not really a big like yards after the catch guy or anything like that, but he's someone that could give you that versatility. Wandale Robinson from Kentucky is another one
I
that
like
kind of
him.
stands out. Super, super versatile. Oh, the one that, that keeps kind of sticking in my brain as, someone that could be a really nice player in the NFL that may not be getting a ton of buzz around the draft is Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. Probably a third round guy, maybe a second round guy. Who knows if the NFL is higher up on him than like what's out there. But really good route runner. I've seen he's drawn some comps to Deontay Johnson, which he's a really nice player just for the footwork alone, and that usually ends up being what the Bills are looking for in terms of their receivers and what they're looking for to pair with Josh Allen. They tried the big receiver route with Kelvin Benjamin, didn't really work. So they've gone more to shifty, good footwork players like Stephon Diggs, like Emmanuel Sanders, like Gabriel Davis, like Isaiah McKenzie, like Cole Beasley. So I think that might be where they go. Another one I didn't mention, John Michie from Alabama, is someone that they've had in for a visit, and I think he's someone that could be on their radar as well. But I'm also not totally convinced that they're going to take a receiver early anymore, just because they have so much at this point. That mock was before they signed Jamison Crowder, I'm pretty sure. And Crowder, I think, is going to be a player for them this year. They have McKenzie, they have Crowder, they have Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis signed for the next 2 years at least. They still have Marquez Stevenson in the background. They have Isaiah Hodgins in the background that they like. Jake Kumerow is there for special teams. How many spots at receiver do they have for all of these guys? There is an argument to say, okay, get someone who has the potential to play both the boundary and as a slot receiver and let them kind of be your fifth receiver this year and let them grow. But I don't think they need to force it this year just because they have this depth already to where they can maybe get by, push it down the road because they have some bigger short-term needs and maybe even not take a wide receiver in the first 4 rounds.
Well,
Plus, they still have Duke Williams.
They might. And Felton Huggins.
Yeah.
This might be too hard of a thing to look for, but is there any receiver that maybe they don't do running back and instead they find that Deebo Samuel type person who could kind of do a little bit of everything? I saw an article today in The Ringer that talked up Treylon Burks as that guy who could kind of
he would be the guy.
A lot of different things like that. Like, is that something where they maybe do a 2-for-1 and hope even if they trade up to get someone like that and then kind of solve both their problems?
Yeah, Burks is interesting in that respect. I also like the whole Deebo conversation. It's just so wild that he has become like the fascination of the entire NFL offseason, even before his trade request, because people are like, oh, find the next Deebo. And then the running joke on Twitter is like, oh, there's now 14 prospects in this year's draft who are the next Deebo Samuel. But like, and even Deebo doesn't want to be Deebo anymore. like part of the conversation is, hey, I don't want to be a running back because I actually want to be able to play this game for longer than the next 4 years, which I don't blame him for at all. But Burks is someone that's super compelling with from that respect. He is like the size, the speed, and everything he's able to do is really impressive. Past him, you're probably getting down into the later round picks. Like,
what was it? Wandale Robinson was kind of that. He's much
Yeah.
smaller than him.
Yeah,
but
he's
like
definitely
40
smaller.
carries this year.
Right, exactly. So I think those are the type of guys that might, scratch the itch. But like, I think Wandale and Isaiah McKenzie are pretty similar in that respect, because McKenzie can still give you the like the jet sweep stuff too. Like Calvin Austin can do that stuff. It just depends on what they're looking for. And if they truly want to have that versatile wide receiver, then maybe they go for Burks. I kind of think that he's going to be gone by the time they're picking at 25. And I just don't know that they would like trade up for a receiver this year, maybe future years. But after giving Diggs the contract that they just gave him, they love Gabriel Davis. They signed Crowder. They signed Isaiah McKenzie. It's the way that Brandon Beane talked about Gabriel Davis yesterday, like wanting to go to war with Gabriel Davis. I'm like, okay, they're going to give that dude an extension as early as they can. I just wonder how big of a priority it is to them.
I know Kyle has 50 more questions on the wide receivers alone, but I just want to jump in with, as we told you last year, we have a Patreon, and our number one Patreon is the Joe B tier. And he gets a blurb every episode. And this episode, he has a question for you.
Thomas
Mulcahy, yes.
Okay.
Our personal Joe B. And he wants to know your thoughts on Chris Olave, I believe is.
Oh, Olave.
Yeah, Olave.
Olave.
He really wants the Bills to take a receiver, and it seems like he checks a lot of boxes. He wants to know if he's a good fit.
Yeah,
is he Latin?
I don't know that.
We'll get him on the pod to ask him.
I don't. Exactly. He is a really good fit for what they're usually looking for. Like, we're talking about that excellent route technician, great footwork, deceptive in going in and out of his breaks. Like that dude is going to create separation at the next level. The big wonder about him is what can he do like past that? Because the reason I think people have guys like Garrett Wilson and Jamison Williams ahead of him is because these are guys that when they have the ball in their hands, they can like really do something with it. Like Garrett Wilson, every time you're getting him the ball, he's probably getting additional yardage. Same thing with Jamison Williams when he's able to get that speed going. Even Burks too is someone that can do that a bit more. Olave is more like a technician. I would say he's closer to what Stephon Diggs is, because Diggs isn't a big yard after the catch guy either. He was in Minnesota previously, but he hasn't been for Buffalo for a little bit here. So I think in terms of a boundary guy, versatile, that can do a little bit of everything in this offense, he would be a great fit. One, I don't think he's going to be there. Two, I think there's a good chance he's gone by 16 to New Orleans. I honestly think that there's a shot that we see 2 receivers in the top 10, and all 5 of those top guys that we're talking about, Olave, Wilson, Williams, Burks, and Drake London of USC. I would not be surprised if all of those guys are gone by like 22. So the Bills might not even get to pick one of those top 5 guys, even if they wanted to.
If one of those, if one of those guys was available, of those 5, do you think it's something where the Bills are like, we just can't pass this up?
Yeah,
like, this guy's here.
I think they would be open to it. I don't know that they would just be like, oh, this guy is just something that we don't have. Because the one thing I come back to with Brandon Beane in drafting the first round, he's usually swinging for the fences in one way or another. Like with Josh Allen was a complete swing for the fences. Tremaine Edmonds too, because there's nobody like Tremaine Edmonds at middle linebacker in the league like him, just based on height, weight, length, speed. Like he's got the total package, and they bet on themselves to be able to develop him. Ed Oliver was kind of the same way. There's not a lot of defensive tackles that have the agility scores and the explosive scores that he had in the combine, going through that event, to where they felt like he could become something special. Same deal with Greg Rousseau. Like, the height, weight, length thing is something that they really look for in defensive ends. And they felt like that this is a guy that could ascend way past what they drafted him. That's what they're looking for in the first round. They want to be able to draft a star. And the whole part about a wide receiver is, are any of these guys going to give them an element to their offense that they don't have? Like Burks would be, I think, the most prominent example of the guys that, they don't have that player on their roster. Olave, like I said, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Diggs just because he's a route technician. Maybe like Robert Woods is a good comparison for him. Just really good routes. You know what you're getting from him week in, week out. Is he a top receiver on a roster? Debatable. Like he could be on a bad team, but he could completely outplay this. But there's an element of, okay, is he going to push you over the edge? But that's why Burks, to me, of all of them, I think Burks is the one that kind of stands out to me just because he's different.
Kyle, let's keep it going. I know that list is long.
We're almost done.
On the defensive side of the ball now, There's a lot to cover here, but we'll
Yes.
try to keep it down, guys. You got Edmonds going into the last year of his deal, and Poyer going through his situation, also last year of his deal. Do you feel like either one of those guys, maybe even before the Poyer kind of situation is happening now, were maybe on the hot seat, and maybe in the first 3 rounds where like the Bills were looking for their replacement, or could be? Or do you think those are the guys going forward?
Well, Kyle really wants to get rid of Edmonds. He's been talking about it for years. So that's a good, Is there a 6'9", 14-year-old in this draft that can jump in and take his spot?
Yeah, EJ Manuel. I think there's a chance that they're looking to draft at both positions this year. The Poyer conversation is interesting because
I think it's the most interesting thing that we should be talking about. Like, it's huge.
Yeah, there was I was at the Bean press conference yesterday, obviously, and it struck me as interesting throughout the entire 3, 4, 5 minutes him and McDermott were collectively talking about it, that they did not once say anything about wanting to play ball and making sure he's here for the long term. Like, and Bean doesn't typically like to negotiate through the media. He'll even say it as such, but when he wants to extend a player, it's hard for him to kind of like hide it. Like, I remember back in March, Bean was on with WGR and said something along the lines of, eventually we'll open up the conversation with Steph and see if we can't work something out. Even with Josh Allen way back when, it was never we're offering this, blah, 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 but it was we'll get the deal done when the time is right. There was always that intent that was out there. And every single thing that they said was, we love Jordan. We love everything that he's done for the team. And we love his family. It was almost like a uniform sentence. It's like, but business is getting in the way. Business gets in the way, and that's fine. Not mad at him, anything like that. We want Jordan to be here, but at no point were they like, we're going to try and work something out. Even on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, when I asked Brandon Bean the question, at what point do you have to think about like that you can't pay everyone, because it's real. They have paid so many people. The cap they've had to do so many different things to try and get by with the cap this year, just to make it all work. And they have a few different young guys that are coming up on their final year, like Tremaine Edmonds, who we brought up. Dawson Knox is another one. Ed Oliver is going to be entering his first eligibility to have an extension. They're going to pick up his 5th-year option, so they'll have a little bit more wiggle room. But even Devin Singletary is going to be a free agent too. So you have to sit there and wonder, like, okay, what do you prioritize? Are you prioritizing what will be an age 32 safety by the time he's a free agent? Or are you extending a 25-year-old linebacker, or a 26-year-old tight end, or a 25-year-old defensive tackle who's really great in the middle of your defense? These are things you have to think about. And so when I asked Bean the question about, like, do you just kind of have to put up a wall eventually and say, he can't pay everyone? He kind of clumped Poyer in with everybody else that has asked for something in the offseason. He's like, he's not the only one that has asked me to take a look at their contract. And he's like, and the finality of it was, at this point, we're focused on the draft. And I thought, like, whoo, okay, you weren't focused on the draft back in early April when you got Diggs done, but now you're focused on the draft. I get it. It's cool. But I think this is going to hover for a while.
Can I offer a hypothetical on it? A lot of times the media will gather and fans will speculate about what's going on, and you'll dissect a press conference to see what they're really saying. I think in this situation, it's possible that the Bills don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
It's possible. So let me offer this hypothetical. They're going into the draft, and it's a year where there's no quarterback that's like surefire, and everyone's kind of up in the air, and it's deep in some positions and not. Is this a year where you can jump up and sacrifice draft capital, maybe your first next year, to go up there and grab like Kyle Hamilton, the
Mhm.
Notre Dame safety. Maybe they love him. Maybe they get him. Poyer's gone. And right now the Bills are just trying to weigh, does that destroy our locker room? Does that destroy our draft? Can we jump up and do it? And when they have that all figured out, and if that doesn't work, then they'll just extend Poyer because they have that 10 million in cap room that they just created.
Yeah, that's totally a plausible idea. I think there is a certain point where they have to kind of think, okay, what is Jordan Poyer's value moving forward? I'm glad you brought up the Kyle Hamilton idea, because he is something like, you know how I was talking about that Brandon Beane usually likes to add something to their roster that they don't have, and that he's looking to hit a home run. Kyle Hamilton would be looking to hit a home run.
I want them to get him. Yeah.
He's immensely talented. And
how far up do you think they would need to get?
I'm seeing like 4 or 5, but
well, that part of it is interesting because there's a few different like draft guys that I think are really plugged in and I think are really connected. One of them's Peter Schrager, who I think does an absolutely incredible job of like being ahead of the curve. The other one is Daniel Jeremiah, who is usually high up there in like mock draft rankings, everything like that. And I actually went and watched Daniel Jeremiah on a YouTube mock draft video where he did like a swap pick for pick with this guy who runs the channel named Bengal. And the topic of Kyle Hamilton came up, and he was, Jeremiah basically said, I think he's probably, outside of the top 10 at that point. And so if it gets to that point where the Bills value the safety position higher than a lot of teams do out there, and the reason for him dropping is because of that positional value, them moving up to 12, because I don't think they're going to trade with Washington anytime soon because of the whole JD McKissick thing. But if they move up to 12 or 13, I could totally see that within the realm of possibilities. And it's not even as though it would preclude them from keeping Poyer, because Sean McDermott was kind of in a similar situation back in Carolina when they took Shaq Thompson at the end of the first round that one year. Not to say Kyle Hamilton and Shaq Thompson are anything close in prospects, but like he had to figure a way to get that player on the field without having an immediate role for them. And so my vision for Kyle Hamilton is as someone who can fill in the interim as their third linebacker, because they have a vacancy there because they cut AJ Klein. He can come in and be their big nickel and cover tight ends, prolific tight ends, whether it be Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, or whoever else is popping up this year.
Is Saron Neal still on the team? I don't even know.
He is. They re-signed him, but that was his role
Oh.
last year
Yeah.
as a specialist. And that was his only defensive role. So that's why I think like if they were able to do that and get Kyle Hamilton, have him become the long-term strong safety for Jordan Poyer, and potentially become one of the best safeties in the league, that is very much something Brandon Beane would do. And if it costs them their second round pick this year, screw it, go do it. Like that guy is different than anything else you have on your roster. And from the Poyer side of it, I could see them coming to just like a bridge where maybe because they have this cap space that, they can just take care of it this year, that maybe they just get him to the yearly salary that he wants this year, and then just say, look, we're not going to extend you another year. It's just not in our best interest because of all the other contracts. But then the flip side of that is, would Poyer be cool with that? Because he's probably not going to have another all-pro season. There's only 2 of those guys, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen again for him, because there was a lot of luck involved with interceptions. So it's going to be an interesting situation, and adding Drew Rosenhaus to the mix only took a flamethrower to the entire situation, because that guy is a power broker and he is usually brought in when the client wants something done.
I had a really good hypothetical.
Yeah.
Jerks.
It was good, man. It's like you've been doing a podcast for 5 years. Learned a question. All right. I wanted to stay with the cornerbacks, the other most popular position, I feel.
Yeah, it is.
it's very this draft class seems to be very top heavy and then falls off after like the top 3 or something.
Okay.
I guess just are any of those top 3 worth moving up for? Do you think they fall? And if possible, are any of those guys or which cornerbacks would you feel like good second round value? Who they, if they stayed put and drafted something else in the first round?
I think of the 3 that you're talking about being Stingley, McDuffie, and Sauce Gardner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ahmad Gardner would be the one that checks every box for them, but he's probably going to end up being a top 5, at worst top 7 pick. And are you giving up your first round pick next year to draft your second cornerback in your scheme? That's where I kind of like pump the brakes a little bit, only because they've been just getting by at cornerback 2 for years. Every single year that McDermott has been here. Like, you want a fun exercise, go back and look at the cornerback depth chart after Tre'Davious White every single year. It has been 1-year veteran to a low-cost deal and Levi Wallace, basically. Like 2017 in the Sammy Watkins deal, they acquired EJ Gaines as a throw-in who was on an expiring. He ends up starting the entire year. And they also signed Sharice Wright that year.
Oh, wow.
2018. Yeah, right. 2018, they signed Phillip Gaines and the immortal Vontae Davis on 1-year deals. 2019, it was Kevin Johnson. 2020, it was Josh Norman. 2021, their 1-year low-cost veteran signing was Levi Wallace, because they let him hit free agency. He ends up coming back on a 1-year deal, and he competes with the new Levi Wallace, who is Dane Jackson. So because they haven't really prioritized it, I wonder if they would do like a legitimate move up for a corner. And even further from that, it makes me wonder if they value it highly enough to use the 25th overall selection on it. I don't know. Like, I'm not ruling it out by any stretch of the imagination, because there's the Tre'Davious White factor, and you don't know how long it's going to take him to get back. But you're telling me that they wouldn't feel just fine with Dane Jackson and, I don't know, Joe Hayden for 5-6 weeks until Tre'Davious White's back, and then you have one of those guys? Like, you can get by with those players. They just almost made it to the AFC Championship game with Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson as their starting cornerbacks. They believe in the defensive line. They believe in their linebacking core. They believe in their safeties. And, you know, I think cornerback 2 is just one of those spots where they feel like they don't have to, you know, address it with a ridiculous asset, just because they can hide it almost. They've been doing it for years. They just want someone who knows the scheme, tackles well, and is in the spot where they need to be. And, you know, that's my only hang up with the cornerback idea. So guys like Andrew Booth that we're talking about here at 25, he's intriguing, 1-year starter, has a lot going on. I've seen our draft guy, Dane Brugler, thinks he would be best in a man heavy scheme, just because he is, you know, so athletically gifted, but really good tackler. I think he would be able to fit into the Bills scheme. Kyler Gordon is someone who I think is a strong fit for them in their scheme. I think he has, you know, not the typical arm length they're looking for, but he's got that tackling, you know, super explosive, just a ridiculous athlete. I think he's like 97th percentile in agility scores on like the shuttle and the 3-cone, stuff like that. And then there's some like other day 2 prospects, like Cam Taylor-Britt is someone that you should keep your eyes on. Length and tackling are the 2 big things, and he's really good at it. The one that intrigues me in like the 3rd round, that kind of checks every single one of their boxes of what they look for in like a developmental cornerback, is Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State.
Fayetteville State,
3rd round pick, almost 6'3", 195 pounds, runs really well, has almost 33-inch long arms, comes from a smaller school, 0-star recruit, was not recruited by anyone, goes to Fayetteville State. switches from a wide receiver to the cornerback position, turns himself into a legitimate NFL draft prospect basically in the span of 2 years. And I just think like they love that stuff where it's like, oh, they want someone in that position where it's like they were counted out. Like the Levi Wallace factor. Levi Wallace was not recruited by anyone, walked on, played flag football at Alabama, eventually went on their roster, and even then was undrafted to the NFL. Like that's the type of stuff that they love it because they love, knowing that they have a guy that has that fire to outlive what they can do. So Josh Williams is someone that I have my eye on them for number 89. And, not to be a spoiler, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have him as my 3rd round pick for the Bills in my final mock.
Inside access in the Hunt cast. We get it. We give it to you.
And, we got to get to our question game. So I think, Kyle, you get one more question, but you better make it good. Is it going to be about Fayetteville State?
Yeah.
Is it going to be about safety or is it going to be about linebacker? You must choose.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You got a lot of options. Offensive line, who's hot, who's ugly. Jamison Williams, pretty ugly, by the way. Just gonna throw that out.
He's fast, though. That's got to count for something. Maybe you're just looking at him when he's standing still. You got to be looking at him when he's running.
His hair is flying.
I don't know. I was gonna get into offensive line, but I don't think they think it's a need.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, one of my questions was going to be like, I know
He's
who's
doing
the
a
top
thing now where one of my questions was gonna be, so then he could
Yes.
ask another question after this.
Tyler Lindenbaum, right? I think that's how he says his last name.
Yeah. It just reminds me of
so-
like something from Office Space.
Yeah.
So the only reason I bring him up is PFF said he is the highest graded center they've ever had
Mhm.
in PFF college. And it just got me thinking, maybe not specifically about him, but if someone fell to them not at a position of need, maybe like Tyler Lindenbaum, do you think they're like, we have to take him? Or is there and then I guess the second part of the question is there an offensive lineman you think worthy of a first
like,
round pick?
Linderbaum and Zion Johnson seemed like they were built in a Sean McDermott football factory. Like one wrestles, the other played
Mhm.
every position on the O-line. It
Mhm.
seems like they would love these two guys.
Yeah. The only thing that would make me hesitate with Lindenbaum from Iowa is that I don't know that he can play guard. Like it's basically center or bust for him and some of his athletic profile isn't an exact fit for what they have been looking for at offensive linemen throughout this offseason. The lack of versatility factor, I think, is what really hurts him, though, in terms of being the potential Bills pick. Only because, like, if they didn't sign Mitch Morse to a contract extension, I would have been like, yeah, Tyler Lindenbaum, definitely in the mix. But because they did, Morse is here for probably the next 2 years, if not the next 3, if he plays out the rest of his deal. I think the place to look for interior offensive line is someone who can play both guard and center. Who can play guard right now, but can transition to center over the long term. So Zion Johnson, perfect. Like that's exactly what you're looking for. It can be a really good guard in the interim. Might not be a starter immediately because it looks like they have their starting lineup set along the offensive line, but kind of a perfect fit there because eventually he can become that center. Guys like Dylan Parham out of Memphis on day 2 at some point, probably best fit at center, but has that ability to play guard because they haven't done it in the past. So those are the type of prospects that I would be looking for with interior offensive line, and always look for recently players that test well athletically. The tool that I use is called Relative Athletic Score. It's developed by this guy on Twitter by @MathBomb, and he's got this website where he plugs in the height, weight, arm length, bench press, 3-cone shuttle, 40-yard dash, 20-yard split, 10-yard split, the broad jump, the vertical jump, and it spits out a score out of 10 in relation to every other prospect that has gone through it at their position, and compares them. And the players that the Bills have been looking for along the offensive line have been 9+ across the board. Like the guy they just signed today, David Quesenberry, was a 9.44 his draft year. Spencer Brown was a 10. Tommy Doyle last year was like a 9.9. Roger Saffold, his draft year, was a 9.4. Mitch Morse is up there like around the 9.5 range. Ryan Bates, I think, was a 9.6. And the only player that Brandon Beane like didn't invest in with this kind of philosophy in mind was Deion Dawkins, but he's and he was at like a 7.7 or an 8 or something like that. So he's high up there. And the guys they've gotten rid of, Darrell Williams, John Feliciano, very low relative athletic scores. So I think there's something to this, to where if you're looking for someone who they could take day 2, day 3, look for the guys with the high relative athletic scores, and that might be able to guide you your way.
Well, hopefully you guys all have high relative trivia scores.
I might not this year. I might not this year.
Yeah, this is a big year. Joe lost last year for the first time ever. He has to get his mojo back. For those who don't know, I'm going to give each person a name, and you have to tell me whether that person is a draft eligible person this year or a name I got from somewhere else. Greg's names will generally be people mocked in the first round. Kyle's names, people mocked in the second. And Joe's names will be people mocked in the last couple of
I feel
rounds.
like Kyle's like, he knows more about the draft than he lets on. So I feel like he should be like a round 2 to 4 range.
Well, you know what?
I
I gave him no round 1 people.
Offensive. I'm good offensive skill sets because of fantasy. But once we start getting into the 3rd round guards.
Like, do you know who Nick Cross is?
No.
He was married to Jessica Simpson.
And as always, we need a jersey to play for so the jersey, and because it's their draft episode, Terrell Troop. Get yourself a nice Terrell Troop.
Did you ever read his story in the news?
We don't have time.
All right. I can bring it up if you want me to read it live.
We'll start with Greg, and remember, spelling is available for all names if you need anyone. Greg, your name is Akeem Ikwanu.
Akeem. That sounds like a football name. It doesn't sound like a name of someone famous. Akeem Ikwanu. I'm gonna say if he is a football player, he's on the line, either defense or offense. It just sounds like a big guy to me. So I'm gonna say football, offense, or defensive line.
Very good. Offensive tackle, North Carolina State.
They call him Icky.
Really? I've never heard of this person before, so
He's going to be a top 5 pick probably.
Okay, good. Maybe I probably heard about him somewhere on Twitter, but never registered. So
Kyle, your name, Perion Winfrey.
No.
It's Oprah's son.
No, that is defensive tackle out of Oklahoma.
That was such a good one.
I'm sorry. Joe, your name, Ricky Jarrett.
Oh, geez. No.
That's correct. That is John David Washington's character on Ballers. Well done.
Oh,
going into round 2, Greg, your name, Charles Cross.
Charles Cross. That's a good generic name. That is someone, that's a character's name on like CIS, like New Orleans or something. That's not a football player.
That is a football player. That's an offensive tackle.
Isn't that who Joe just said?
Oh no,
maybe.
No, I said Nick
Cross.
Cross. He's probably gonna be a top 10 pick, Greg.
I don't give a shit. Bills don't pick till 25. I don't have to know him.
Kyle, your name, Willie Beeman.
No.
We all know who Willie Beeman is. Come on.
Too much.
That's Jamie Foxx's character in Any Given Sunday. Joe, your name, Torquell Travers.
Yeah.
No,
there's someone that's close to it.
That is the name of a character in Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald.
No, there is someone in this draft that is very close to that name. I swear, because I know that I'm coming on that this is going to be happening. So I'm like, I have to at least peruse these random UDFAs. There's someone close to that name. I promise you.
Well, I'm sorry. No partial credit. We got to move on. We're at the halfway point. It's tied at 1 apiece. Greg, your name, Credence Barebone.
There's no fucking way there's an actual human being named Credence Barebone. I was just handed a bone. That's not a football player.
That is correct. That is the name of a character in Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore. Kyle, your name, Jaquan Brisker.
Oh, you know my rule. Whenever it's a Jaquan, it's a football player.
That's your name. All right. And you know what? That rule is correct again. That's a safety out of Penn State. Joe, you got to get this to keep pace with everyone. Your name here is Cade York.
There's a Cade Mays who's an offensive lineman.
Cade York.
I'm
Can
gonna
you spell
say
Cade?
I'm gonna say it's a football player.
That is a
It's been
football
throwing
player.
me off.
Is that a wide receiver?
That's a kicker out of LSU.
Oh wow.
All right. 2s across the board. Greg, Jack Anderson.
Football
It's so
player.
basic.
You going
Football player. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately,
This
I
is
tricked
tricky.
you. That's a guard the Bills drafted last year. So I'm
Oh.
sorry. That does
Where's
not
he?
count.
Is he on the practice squad?
No, Philly scooped him up.
Dang.
All right. To you, Kyle. DeMarvin Leal.
That's
Doesn't
Spanish
sound-
for of Marvin.
DeMarvin?
DeMarvin Leal.
Here's what's tough is that name doesn't sound like it's in Fantastic Beasts. So I'll say football player.
That is a football player. Defensive lineman, Texas A&M. Joe, if you get this, we go into Greg's favorite thing, overtime. Here it is. Here's your name, Christopher Allen.
I knew you'd hit me with a generic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough. Isn't that the Winnie the Pooh kid?
That's what I mean.
That's the kid that owns Winnie the Pooh.
I think that's a football player.
That is a football player. Edge out of Alabama. We're going into quick OT. Kyle, your name, Rod Tidwell.
Yeah, no. Yes.
Come on.
No, not a football player.
You said all the answers. What are you going with?
Yeah,
No,
you
yeah.
can't do that. What is it?
I'm sticking with no.
You sure?
No.
We need an answer on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Nah.
Come on, Kyle. Give an
No,
answer.
no, it's
Okay.
not a football.
That's Cuba Gooding's Jr.'s
Yep.
character,
Cuba
right?
Gooding Jr. and Jerry Maguire.
Wow.
Joe, to you, Sonny Weaver Jr.
Sigourney Weaver.
No, that is not a football player this
That
year.
is correct. That is Kevin Costner in Draft Day.
Wow.
Kyle, to you, Paul Crew.
No.
Correct. That is Burt Reynolds / Adam Sandler in the
Dude, I have
longest
guessed
yard.
everyone. This
Yeah.
is crazy.
Joe, to you, Vince Howard.
Oh,
It's a basketball player.
no. You just combined Vince Carter and Dwight Howard.
I did. I 100% did.
Is it?
Vince Howard?
Vince Howard.
Not a football player.
That is not a football player. That is Michael B. Jordan's character in Friday Night Lights. I have
Wow.
I have
Should have known that.
I have no more fake names, so I'm going to cut the jersey in half and give you both a piece of the Terrell Troop jersey.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't.
I'll
This has never happened before.
I know
Never.
it's unprecedented.
It's more insane that I guessed on every one and made it this far. Every single one.
You almost got me on Cade York.
That was my
Almost
yearbook
did.
quote. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
on the
Joe,
draft
thanks for
episode.
joining us. Do you,
Thanks
do
for
you
having
wanna
me.
say anything? Plug for The Athletic?
Sure. Yeah, you can read any of my stuff over at The Athletic, theathletic.com. You can listen to our podcast, The Buffalo Beat, and find it wherever you get your podcast. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks. And, sign up for our Patreon if you want. I have a comedy special on YouTube. Go listen to that.
He's telling you specifically, Joe, if you want to
Yeah.
sign up for
Yeah,
Patreon.
Joe,
Also, he has a
please.
comedy
I'm going to
special.
sign up for the Joe B tier.
You get it for free. All right, that's it. I have
Yes.
work. I'm at work.
That's
I'm
it.
getting fired right
Thank you,
now.
everyone.
Sweeto.
Gather round, ye mafia, and hear me tell my tale. How through ages on Erie Shore those Bills were doomed to fail. A kick off course forward is back, and says Berman, says he, you'll circle wagons Buffalo at least till 23. The pass looms large like tattered signs for Barnes and Salino, but Allen and McDermott will bring cheer to Buffalo. They say his arm could cure cancer, but Bills fans need it more. This is our year, it has to be. Dear God, let it be our year. Take my tip before your trip to join the rock pile. Don't be a fan of Tom Brady, and Zubaz is still in style. You don't have to suck dick for a Kiko jersey, you can get one at the store. And dildos on the field, you know they're bound to occur. 13 seconds, the only thing that kept us from that bowl. This is the part where I shoehorn in a reference to no goal. Don't forget the Sabres still suck, but don't let it ruin your day. Harken to those shining Bills, there'll be no hockey in May. Go Bills!